Hey guys, Henry here. It's been a while. Thought I'd record another video about all the stuff I've been learning about. And today I want to talk about integral theory. So one of the most important things I think about this is it has been brought up, like, people look at the charts and they see like the feudal going to the modern, going to all these things, but they don't really understand the theory behind it. So essentially, integral theory was created by Ken Wilber and in his book called The Theory of Everything. And what he points out in it is that small components make up larger systems, right? So right here, I just have a basic chart of this is very stripped down, but cells make organs, organs come together to make a person. Now, between this, cells make tissues, make hearts, make organ systems like the cardiovascular system. A bunch of systems come together to make a whole person, right? But Ken Wilber's theory of integral theory basically takes this to the societal level and basically explains how different people don't understand each other. So this is one of the most important things for understanding how different people think, is actually that they're thinking at different levels of complexity. And one of the other things to note is, more complexity doesn't mean good or bad. They're all useful. And one of the most important things for psychological empathy is to start understanding that, would the heart be anything without the cells? Would the human be anything without the lungs? You couldn't breathe. And in the same way, society has levels of thinking. And now, one of the things I will say about this is when I first came across integral theory, I think it's a good sign when a theory pisses everyone political off, because it kind of gives their tea, it shows their hand. And if you see the hand, then if you see that the game's being rigged, you no longer want to play the game, right? So one of the principles of integral theory / spiral dynamics, and we're going to draw the spiral, is that civilization goes through self and other phases, or unifying phases, right? Phases, right? And it oscillates. So that's where we get the spiral and spiral dynamics. So level one, say level one is right here, and it spirals over. I'm going to draw for that the symbol of the circle, which is just the one side. It's your desires. It's basically the levels of thinking are also the levels of development we go through over time. Basically, a baby's at level one. They cry for what they want, and that's the only way they know how to communicate. They don't really have anything to give, because all they are is their desire, right? So examples of one thing he points out is, Ken Wilber points out, is levels of organization is like sparse tribal bands would be at level one. And one of the examples they gave for some Inuits is that there was a scandal in Canada where a family was living out in the wilderness, Inuit family, and the grandparents noted that there's not enough food for the winter, so they decided to go out into the snow the glacial bluffs, and basically just walk into the glacier and die. And for them, that was just a very simple calculation. They weren't thinking about, they were like, oh, our time has come. The kids need food. We don't really have anything more to give. You also see kind of our animal nature, like animals sometimes, like if a cat gets injured, it might slink off to go die. Like, it won't ask for help. So basically your basic needs. And then very much from that, like, it'd just be a very straightforward calculation of if you know what you want, well, you go after it, right? Now, level 2, we're going to do some geometry for this, but I'm going to draw 2 circles interlocking, which make the vesica, right? And that's where we get to the level of connection, right? And so level 2s is the mystical and tribal organization. So it's where you understand that, oh, I have desires. Other things, people have desires. Well, let me give them their desires. So this is the level of connection. But at this level, it's still simplistic, and you're still, the example that I was given was, some kids are told to get some things for mommy, and the kid gets his mom a toy truck. But the child doesn't understand toy trucks are kid things. Mommy might like flowers and chocolates, maybe mommy does like a truck, but at this level, it's where you see the selfish person or the person who means well, and they give you something that they know they'd like. They're not really understanding what you need. They just understand that you have needs. So this is the first unifying layer, right? But we can still see that it is limited. So then we move on to level 3. And level 3, I will draw the triangle. And level 3 is the level of nations and empires. So it's where you start understanding, oh my gosh, like other people have needs, but they also want things from each other, right? And so this is basically the level of like all military operations. It's, what does this person want? How can I get what I want from them? So in a way, it's very straightforward. If you've ever been in a, kind of manipulative relationship, you might know what it feels like to be arguing with someone at a level 3. If someone's kind of, they're convincing you of something, but it's really just something they want, and they might be at a level 3. Not saying that level 3 is all bad, but like I said, military operations, if I attack so-and-so, if I attack A, what will B do? Or if I give gifts to A, what will B do? It's kind of that level of calculation. It's where you start understanding, it's like, how do I win at the game of connection for myself? Now, I'm going to draw a line right here. And I'm only going to talk about the first 6 levels because this is kind of the pre-moral level. This is kind of, you can see there's kind of ego here. But at level 4, we will draw a square. And this is the level of rules-based systems. So we've seen, the individual, community, empires, and this is where you start to get a rules-based system. So I think a lot of people sometimes have a bone to pick with, religions or rules, but the most important thing to see is like, what is the problem this is solving? And I do want to also note, one of the most important things about the levels, and as you progress in the levels, is that each level solves the problems of the previous level. So 2 solves the problems of 1 of just being a crying baby. I'm going to give you gifts. I'm going to give you gifts, right? But level 3 solves the problem of level 2 of like, oh, there are these multiple tribes. Well, what happens if someone attacks someone else in the tribe for their own desires? It's like, oh, we got to organize, and I got to show that I'm on top, right? So this is pulling tribes together through force, but this is pulling tribes together through rules and shared values. So And this is the level of all religions. So if you're in a religion and you sincerely believe it and you think it's the end all be all, you're at level 4. Now, I think like even as you go to higher levels, understanding rules-based systems of how to stop people from dominating each other is very important. But it's not only religions that are 4 structures. It would also be like your local HR. Your local HR is a level 4 system, or a code of etiquette, or political correctness. These are also level 4 systems, right? One of the most important things that I want to point out is that this is where we start getting into modern politics, right? So level 4, it does kind of favor what is considered conservatism. But like I said, your local HR, political correctness, those are also level 4 thinkers of people saying, be nice, follow these rules, and you're a good person, right? Now, this is where things get kind of interesting. Level 5, I will draw the star. And I'll draw the star because the star has a meaning, right? And whereas 4 is like a square, what is being square? It's being, if someone calls you square, it means, you're a right angle. You kind of, it's robotic. It's boring. But what does the star symbolize? The star is kind of like, I'm a star, where humans are star shaped. So whereas the 4 is the stable structure, the star is it's bursting out, it's achieving. This is the level of achievement. So if you are a level 5, you're essentially someone who is, the biggest example of this is our corporate systems and business systems. So level 5 is the level of making things happen. It is optimistic, positive things. There's abundance, there's opportunity everywhere. But I mean, we also see the negatives of these systems of, I'm going to make a company that makes these widgets. Well, these widgets are now filling up the Thames River, or, polluting the environment, or we've made plastic bags. They're so cheap to make, and now there are plastic bags over all of our national parks, right? So we see that this level is the only level that actually creates a lot of abundance because it does produce something. Level 4 doesn't actually produce anything, but level 5 produces stuff, but in a short-sighted way. Now, the thing to point out is, how is level 5 better than level 4? Is that level 5 comes from understanding, oh my gosh, there's Catholicism, and so you're in Europe in the Renaissance era or the Enlightenment era. There's these Protestants and there's Catholics, and we've been fighting for 150 years, these bloody Protestant revolution. Well, how can I understand how to play the game of systems, of rules-based systems? I followed the rules. How can I use the rules to my advantage? That is level 5, right? How do I use my connections to my advantage? That's level 3, right? The last one I'm going to talk about today is level 6. And this is the level of, how do I put it? Scientific thinking, like experimentation. So Ken Wilber called this the green humanitarian level. And so what we saw was the people who were the corporate, Steve Jobs, were also the hippie generation. They turned around and went, they did make their money, But then they started understanding, okay, there's more to this. There's more to the meaning of life than just achieving things, right? And so these are people who are collectivistic and individualistic. So it's at the level of which you understand the rules, but you kind of go back to ask, who am I? You know, who are all these different people? And I probably shouldn't tread on anyone for who they are. So this is where you get the ability to think in pluralistic societies, the ability to experiment, whereas this was just trying to get an outcome. We're now experimenting, right? I can try on any identity I want. And so this tends to go really against any rules-based orders. And it is technically more advanced, but you do see how if everyone starts going to level 6 or even they might not even think at level 6, you know, they really might just start teaching really level 1 to 3 values, right? They're thinking that they're progressive, but they're not actually at that kind of level. Now, the important thing I'm going to say for empathy is just like there was a line right here, there's also a line between level 6 and the next few levels. And they call this going from tier 1 consciousness, all of this, to tier 2. And this was kind of a breakthrough for me. It's like, oh, what does this all like mean? Is the next level, level 7, is where you start understanding, oh, these are all useful and valuable, right? So level 7 is where you start realizing, oh, every level's a tool. Because before, what you see in society is everyone who gets to the next level thinks, oh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, you know? Like, this is the next thing. Everyone should be a 6. Everyone should be a 5. You should work for yourself, or you should, you know, be politically correct, or you should follow my religion. And if everyone does that, then the world would be a great place. And you see people arguing this all the time, right? Now, level 7, I'm going to draw this, right? I'm going to draw a bunch of hexagons together. And from this, forgive my drawing. Basically, you can, from level 7 is where you start to realize, it's like, I can use level 5 where it's needed. I can use level 4. I can use level 2, right? You start to see it as a patchwork of, oh wow, these people who are following rules are really fixing the problems of empires. You know, if you looked at modern day, you know, the cartels would be very much a level 3 structure. Because they're really working through dominance and not material abundance. They're not understanding how to work within the rules. They're dominating, right? So it's like, oh wow, if people didn't follow these rules so we could get along, oh my gosh, we'd be in a state of chaos again. That's how they feel, right? What's funny is also even level 2s. Now, I'm going to get into this later. It's not something I want in the scope of this video, but level 2s, that is the level of like having a spiritual synchronistic awareness. If you get up to level 6, you essentially have to go back down to the lower levels and understand them to get to level 7. You'll notice a lot of level 2s have like, just might see auras, or might, you know, have a way of understanding things where like, oh, you know, like the spirit overcame me, you know? And at the tribal level, like they talk about it as if it's real, and it might be, but at level 7, you're like, oh, I can see that. I can connect with that. Like there's a direct syncretism, right? Um, Now, one last thing to point out is that, there can be good and bad people at every level, right? I mean, even level 7, while level 7 can see the whole board right here within their own mind, this could also be the level of political actors, right? People who know how to manipulate all the levels to their gain. Or it could be someone who goes, I can see all the different games people are playing, and I can see, oh, they should be working together, right? But yeah, that's my explanation of integral theory. Just wanted to pump that out real quick. So yeah.